They tell lies about us. They say our instrument is trash, they say we're trash, they say the violin is easier. But today, I'm setting the record straight. Starting off with what I consider to be the most infuriating misconception. Viola is smaller? You would think this wouldn't even be a question, but for some reason, almost every time I tell a non-musician that I play viola, the response is, "Isn't that like a violin?
But smaller?"
The size difference is literally in the title. Violas were made first by the luthier Amati. He began making smaller versions of them, so he added the suffix "in", meaning smaller. So violin literally translates to little viola. This was because his clients wanted something smaller that was easier to play. And this leads me to the next misconception. Viola is easier than violin. Imagine you just won a Lamborghini from Mr. Beast and you're cruising down the road. It's probably so much fun, not only because it's stylish and expensive, but because it's easy to drive. Now imagine you're clunking along in a big Chevy van. I'll tell you from experience, those can be tricky to maneuver in any situation, and I may have driven one into my bathroom at some point a few years ago when I was learning to drive. Anyways, bigger things are harder to use. Much harder. On viola, you're forced into a somewhat unnatural position with a heavier weight on your shoulders. Plus, you have to stretch your fingers and turn your wrist and arm more often in exhausting ways. Of course, it's going to be harder to play. It puts you at higher risk of missing shifts, playing out of tune, and gruesomely crunching your strings. And this is why we get common misconception number 3, violists are worse. Well, the best way I can put it is, if you play violin and viola with the exact same amount of skill, you're going to sound about half as good on the viola. It's worth the sacrifice, since you get a gorgeous tone and you don't have to suffer with an annoying E string. But violists have to live knowing that no matter how fast, clean, and in tune they can play, they'll always end up being compared unfavorably against violinists. But at the same time, it's even more annoying when violinists just pick up the viola and apply their violinistic skills to it without considering things like the viola's different character and subtle differences in viola technique. This is due to common misconception number 4, that violin playing and viola playing are the same skill. Or more importantly, violinists can play the viola better. I made a whole 13-minute video about this a year ago, but basically, in order to really play the viola, you have to empathize with and live in its character, and understand the many significant and subtle differences in the two techniques. Occasionally, violinists are able to do this successfully and speak both languages as a dual instrumentalist, but unfortunately, such musicians are very rare. As a violist, it's really obvious to me when someone is just a violinist trying to play the viola, and I never enjoy it. However, what violinists do have that violists don't is a ton of repertoire, but that doesn't necessarily mean misconception number 5, that viola has no repertoire. It's true we only have arguably 5 major concertos, but we have a lot more that just aren't standard repertoire, along with a whole boatload of sonatas accompanied or unaccompanied. I myself have written at least an hour's worth of music for solo viola, and on top of that, violas can take pretty much anything written for violin or cello and arrange it for viola. You'll commonly find us playing Bach cello suites or Bach's violin sonatas and partitas. Oh, and not to mention the extremely extensive string quartet literature. Those are my 5 biggest pet peeves when it comes to what people often get wrong about my favorite instruments. If you have any more, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and see you next time, Viola Kingdom. Viola King out.